So day 2 of slump, but I have found something. Let's get into it. So this is day 2 of this kind of horrible slump. As I said yesterday, it's horrible, but I think it's part of the kind of recovery process. Today, horrible headache, feeling really kind of out of it and rough and just yucky. Not, poor sleep last night, just horrible and just emotionally just. So today, really kind of had a fairly nothing day, really, just really nothing. Trying to sleep and just sort of feel a bit better, paracetamol, etc. But what I did find out, I've been reading, if you've watched me before, you'll know I don't really read books, I listen to audiobooks. And so what I decided to listen to today, or pick up listening, that's one I've been listening to before, is a book called Psycho-Cybernetics. And whether it's fate or weird coincidence, but it's taken me a while to come to this realisation, but it's when you do look at something with literally just the facts, it's quite obvious, it's quite simple. And yet that's harder to do than it sounds, obviously, and I've been there, I know. Always look at things with the kind of filter of the emotions that we're in, and particularly when it's a problem or something, arduous. For example, like I've been the last 2 days, you sort of look at everything through that filter of how you're feeling, how just emotionally, physically, and it amplifies the badness of the situation, whereas if you take that filter away, it's actually not that bad. So you can always find an answer if you can kind of remove yourself from the situation. Now obviously that's easier said than done, and that's difficult, but it's practice, and it's something that you can start by small things, and then you can build up that practice to be able to look at things objectively without the emotion. Now this kind of skirts down or close to a situation where maybe you might be saying, yeah, but surely by just being emotionless on everything, you kind of, that's not good either. And I agree, you don't want to completely be this emotionless sort of robot. You don't want to be a robot, guaranteed, don't be a robot. But you don't want to be this emotional robot where there's just no emotion at all. But it's more being aware of your emotions and being aware of how your emotions are interacting and possibly interfering with the decision process of how you act. So this is not essentially, I'm not even going to say that this is in the same sort of line, but it's along the same lines as Stoic philosophy. And I'm a big fan of the amazing book The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. I'll put a link below for that because I've read it so many times, listened. I've bought it for so many people. I've recommended it a million, billion, zillion times. It's an amazing book, and it really just makes, I suppose, as Stoic philosophy accessible for ordinary people who perhaps wouldn't have thought or considered reading something about philosophy. But it's an amazing book. It's all about the essentially, and I'm probably butchering this, so sorry Ryan, and sorry Marcus Aurelius, but it's about sort of looking at the facts of a situation and sort of removing the emotion from it to allow you to make a better decision on that situation, which is essentially what I was saying before. And that's not easy, but it's sort of a process of training, practice. But if you can get to that situation, it makes life a lot actually more pleasant and a more easy, because you're not clouded by your emotion at that particular time. And this goes back to something I mentioned before about acting upon training as opposed to instinct. So use an example I used recently, say with scuba diving. if there's a problem underwater, perhaps the natural reaction or the natural sort of instinct will be to shoot to the surface or something like that. Whereas what you learn is stop, breathe, think. So stop, take a breath, think about the training. How do I solve this problem? And then you can solve the problem. If you run out of air, you get your buddies air, etc. And so often in situations we naturally do the sort of knee-jerk instinct of a situation, which is probably often not the best, but that may be all we know, and so that's what we do. Whereas if you've sort of done some degree of training in a situation, or you've learned perhaps a better way, then taking that breath, so you stop, take a breath and go, right, what's better? That instant stop, take a breath, you're kind of stepping aside of the emotion. You're controlling how you react to something, and then you can find the answer, or at least you've got a better chance of finding the answer, as opposed to just going and going on instinct. Now, there's nothing wrong, obviously, with gut reaction and instinct, things like that, but in certain situations, and I know from experience that it's often actually the instincts, particularly if you've got any kind of emotional problem, if that's the PC way of saying it, or mental illness or something like that, your natural instincts certainly could be off. And so in a situation you might instinctively act in a certain way, but that's possibly not the best action for you or for society or whatever. Whereas if you stop, breathe and think, you're more likely to go, hang on, that's not the best thing. You may not have the answer what's the best thing, but you taking that stop and breathe will at least highlight that the instinctive thing is probably not the best thing. And that's the key, because then you can find the answer. Just taking that stop and breathe, okay, that's not the answer, that's probably not the best thing. I don't know what the best thing is, but I can clearly see that's not best. What is the best? And then you're off maybe on a internet search or something, or on a quest to find what the best answer is. But that gap highlights that, how you can find the answer is by just pausing in any situation where you might instinctively do something. Whether that's in the car, someone cuts you up, instinctively you're going to be kind of giving them the finger, or shouting, swearing, following them close behind, racing them, whatever. If you just stop, breathe, think, is that actually going to change anything? No, it's not. The person's cut you up. You're not going to be able to undo that. That's in the past. By being angry with them and following them, swearing at them, whatever, it's not going to undo what's happened. It's only going to make the situation worse, with potentially disastrous, results. So, stop, breathe, think. Okay, not the best. Just let it go. And that's a whole different subject. That's taking the subject even further. But the point is that just stop your activity, stop your reaction, breathe and think. Is this the best outcome? Is this the best thing I should be doing at this particular point? And if it's not, just let it go and don't do it. You may not have the right answer. If you know that that's the wrong answer, then don't do it. And then you can look at finding what the right outcome is. But if you don't know what's right, but you know something's definitely wrong, it's obvious. Don't do that. Tying that back to me over the last couple of days, it's, as I said yesterday, it's being aware of if you're being hard on yourself or beating yourself up. Like I was beating myself up yesterday for feeling so crappy after a nice long stretch, 10 days of everything's kind of groovy. But even then today, sort of woke up still feeling crappy, and it's sort of carried on. And it was only this afternoon, after listening to the book Psycho-Cybernetics, or that small portion of the book, which I'll do more on soon, it just highlighted and made me realise that, as always, I'm not following my own advice, but it's, wow, actually, yeah, I'm I do have power to react better, and sometimes even though you know this stuff, you have to hear it 27,452 times for it to suddenly go, oh yeah, that's right. That's frustrating, but I digress. But it's, yeah, that's the thing. It's there. So the point of all this sort of perhaps ramble, because it's not been a highly energetic day, I can tell you that. But my closing point is that ultimately you are in control of what we do and how we react. And from personal experience, the last 2 days, it's that, you know, how you can find the answer to whatever it is you want the answer to is often just stop, take a breath, and just think about the situation in a factual sense, without the blinkers or the filter of the emotion, how you're feeling. And that will then will sort of present to you an answer which is much more factual, much more useful, as opposed to something based on the emotion. That may or may not have made any sense to you, and I'm a bit rambly today, apologies, but he said the last 2 days have been a bit, but I wanted to just to sort of record this, to sort of, you know, just to share the sort of realization I've had. So hopefully you've got some value from that. If you have, let me know in the comments, and yeah, please subscribe if you haven't already. I would really would appreciate that, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care, bye bye.